Strong and decisive leadership here to put the safety and security of the American people first by accepting the recommendation of the Deputy Attorney General to remove Director Comey as the head of the FBI.
All right, so there are people, they're urging that the FBI have an independent prosecutor look at this whole Russia situation. What do you think about that? Dr. Pollack.
Well, the history of independent prosecutors in this country isn't good. They tend to move in some direction in order to prove they've accomplished something. I think the last one was an independent prosecutor that was appointed by none other than Director Comey himself when he was Associate Director of the FBI. Mr. Fitzgerald wound up prosecuting Scooter Libby under circumstances that have since been demonstrated to be flawed. We got nowhere. We spent a lot of money. I think we've got 2 congressional committees that are working hard on this right now. They're going to get to the bottom of it. The FBI is working on it. I haven't heard a compelling case for a special prosecutor yet.
It has to happen. It has to happen. It's a shame we got to this point, but the actions of the Trump administration over the course of this past week has so damaged the credibility of the FBI and the Justice Department that we're left without any other choice.
Carolyn's hand went up. Go on.
No, I'm just curious. What evidence is there? What evidence has come out that leads you to believe that at this time, that there needs to be a special prosecutor? Because I haven't heard one piece of evidence yet that suggests that right now, at this time, there needs to be one. I think should evidence come forth that suggests that, then I think the Attorney General...
The evidence is overwhelming. The Trump White House has done everything humanly possible.
So give me that one piece of evidence. Give me that piece of evidence
about the chief investigator.
The piece of evidence about the connection with Russia.
Between the Trump
Give me one piece of evidence about the connection with Russia that we need a special prosecutor.
The Russian government.
I'm still looking. I'm waiting for one.
If there was no smoke, if there was no fire, James Comey would still be on the job today.
I'm still asking for one.
And that comes from Donald Trump himself.
I'm asking for one piece of evidence.
Here it comes from Keith Haynes.
Well, I think we have
You're
more
on the spot.
Not our opinion, our piece of evidence.
I think we have more than one piece of evidence. You know, look, the reason why we have special prosecutors and we have had them in the past is because we need an independent investigation, defrocked of politics to get to the core reasons of why certain things have happened or happened. And I think that's the point of where we are now. The rhetoric is so confusing, so contradictory, so politicized right now that on any given issue on these investigations that you have to have an independent voice to do so. And the reason why I think we have to go that step further, because when you look at, and it could be the same thing whether it's a democratically controlled Congress and White House as opposed to where we are now, all Republican, there's no independent voice. And we have to have that in order to restore the confidence of the American people.
The problem with that logic is that every special prosecutor that's ever been appointed before has been anything but apolitical. They've been hyper-political.
Correct.
And to answer Caroline's question,
but I agree with a lot of what you're saying.
She asked for the very specific evidence, and apparently the very specific evidence is so overwhelming that nobody can enumerate any of it. I'm staggering. There is no evidence yet that we've seen.
Because Donald
Trump has
stripped the Justice Department of the credibility to do an investigation by firing the FBI director who was in charge of the investigation. He's left us with no other choice but to go ahead and appoint an independent prosecutor.
Andy, are you glad that Comey was fired? You think he should have been fired?
I think Comey should have been fired, and I think Obama should have fired him in October. When he certainly in July, when he took the subject of a declined criminal investigation and made derogatory comments about her at a press conference. That was inappropriate. It was inappropriate in October for him to announce the reopening of an investigation in the middle of an election. Obama should have fired him at that point.
Correct.
Everybody agreed with that.
And herein lies the issue where we are now with the crucial issue of timing. Why is it, if that's the case, this particular president, on his watch, fires this gentleman immediately after there is a request for additional funding to expand.
There was not the request.
There was no request.
There was no request.
You guys sound like the White House.
Let me finish my
point. It was on record. There was 2 assistants there.
Stop. That's not even a debatable point.
All right.
It's not even a debatable point.
You're right, it's not, because there isn't any.
Caroline.
The point that I am making is that there was a request for additional resources to expand the Russia investigation. There was a report that came out, a memo that came out, supposedly was the basis for firing this individual. The president has come out and said he was going to do it regardless. So the issue is the timing with all of this. This is why you have to have an independent investigation at this point.
All right, stop. Earlier this week, this is interesting, the Los Angeles City Council voted unanimously to petition the Congress to investigate President Trump's possible violation of the Foreign Emoluments Clause, which prohibits the president from accepting financial benefits from a foreign power. And the 25th Amendment enables replacement of a president who is deemed mentally unfit to serve. Andy, is this president fit to serve?
Yes, the president's fit to serve. He's been properly elected by the people of the United States. You know, during the election, people swore that when Hillary, who was going to be president, when Hillary got elected, Trump supporters wouldn't accept it and they wouldn't move on. And we see just the opposite here. He is the president of the United States. I didn't like it. I didn't support it. But he is. We need to accept it. We need to move on. We need to get the business of the United States done. And the two businesses that we have at hand are the American Health Care Act and tax reform. And we're taking our eye off the ball of those two things. That's what needs to happen to this country.
There's not a president before, or there will not be a president that follows, that has done more to undermine the credibility of the United States government, both here and abroad, than Donald Trump.
Having oral sex with an underling in the White House, in the Oval Office, that doesn't count, right?
The events of this past week, fires the FBI director, lies to the American people, hosts a private closed-door meeting with the two senior-most Russian foreign officials, closes it off to the U.S. media, allows a Russian state photographer to come in. We've never been here before. It's an absolute travesty.
Well, first of all, I have to disagree with the good doctor here on that. Trump was properly elected. That's the whole reason why we have the investigation on the Russian hacking issue, because there's allegations that he may not have been properly elected.
Yeah, there's
no evidence. And that's the reason why we need a special prosecutor to get to the bottom of it.
All right.
But no evidence.
Folks, we'll get back to the action on Square Off in just a moment, but first, have to tell you about Pappas restaurants. Take the wide shot, Keith. Do we love Pappas or not?
Yes.
Love Pappas.
Love Pappas. Crab cakes, crab imperial, steaks, chops, salads. And you had the half crab soup, half cream of crab.
I love that.
There are locations in Parkville, Glen Burnie, Cockeysville, National Harbor, MGM, and downtown of the Holiday Inn, Inner Harbor. Go to Pappas, home of the Fab Cake.